The massive ship appeared at the edge of space like a dark storm cloud. The UNS Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light that made the nearby stars seem dim. The battleship was huge, bigger than anything the galaxy had seen before. Its hull was black metal covered in scratches and burn marks from old battles. Weapon ports dotted its surface like angry eyes. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, his hands behind his back as he watched the screens. His face was hard and weathered from years of fighting. Gray streaks ran through his brown hair, and a scar crossed his left cheek. He had been hunting these aliens for 3 months, ever since they attacked the human colony on New Texas. "All systems are working, Captain," said Chief Engineer Lisa Carter from her station. She was a small woman with quick hands and smudges of oil on her uniform. "The jump drives need an hour to cool down, but everything else is ready." "Good," Jake said. His voice was calm and cold. "Ryan, what do you see out there?" Tactical Officer Ryan Blake was a young man with sharp eyes and steady fingers. He worked at his computer reading the enemy ships on his screen. 212 alien vessels, sir. They are spread out in attack formation around the 4th planet. The ships look like they are made of living tissue." Jake nodded. He had seen these bioships before. The Vexthani grew their ships like plants, making them sleek and fast. They thought they were the best fighters in the galaxy. They were about to learn they were wrong. The alien fleet noticed the human ship. On the largest bioship, Commander Zektar watched his screens with confusion. One ship against his entire fleet? These humans must be crazy or stupid. He had never heard of humans before, but that did not matter. His people had conquered 47 worlds in the past year. One more victory would be easy. "Send the surrender message," Zektar told his communications officer. "Tell them to give up now or we will destroy them." The message went out across space in the common galactic language. On the Vengeance, communications officer Nina Bell received it and translated it for the captain. She was a tall woman with red hair tied back in a tight bun. "They want us to surrender, sir," Nina said. "Standard threat about destruction if we do not comply." Jake smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator that had found its prey. "Open a channel." Nina pressed buttons on her console. "Channel open, sir." Jake stepped forward and spoke in a voice that carried no fear, no doubt, only cold certainty. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations Starship Vengeance. You have attacked human settlements. You have killed human civilians. You have made a mistake. Prepare to face the consequences." On the alien flagship, Zektar laughed. His officers laughed too. 1 ship against 200? These humans were either brave or insane. It did not matter which. "Begin the attack," Zektar ordered. "Show them what happens to those who refuse our mercy." The Vexthani fleet began to move. Their bioships flowed through space like living creatures, fast and graceful. Fighter craft poured out of the larger vessels like angry insects. They had used this tactic hundreds of times before. Swarm the enemy, overwhelm them with numbers, then board their ship and take prisoners. But Jake Morrison was not like the other captains they had faced. He had been fighting wars since he was 18 years old. He had learned combat in the asteroid belts of the Sol system, where miners fought pirates with ships built for war, not beauty. "Emma, take us in," Jake ordered. Navigation Officer Emma Rodriguez was young but skilled. Her fingers danced over the controls as she plotted their course. The massive battleship began to move, not away from the enemy swarm, but straight toward it. "Sir?" Ryan Blake looked confused. "We are heading directly into their formation." "That is correct," Jake said. "Danny, are the guns ready?" Weapons specialist Danny Wright grinned as he checked his systems. He was a big man with strong hands and a love for loud noises. "All weapons loaded and ready, Captain. Point defense systems are online." The alien fighters came at them like a cloud of death. There were thousands of them, small and fast. The Vexthani had never lost a battle when they used swarm tactics. No single ship could fight so many enemies at once. They had never fought humans before. The Vengeance charged into the swarm like a bull running through paper. As soon as the fighters came within range, Danny opened fire. The human ship's weapons were different from anything the galaxy used. Instead of clean energy beams, they fired solid metal bullets at incredible speed. Instead of elegant plasma bolts, they shot explosive shells that tore ships apart. The point defense systems came alive. Hundreds of small guns tracked the incoming fighters, filling space with a wall of metal death. The alien pilots had never seen anything like it. Their graceful bioships were torn apart by crude metal projectiles moving faster than their sensors could track. "What are these weapons?" Zektar demanded from his flagship. His officers stared at their screens in shock as fighter after fighter was destroyed. The human battleship's armor was thick and ugly, but it worked. The Vexthani plasma weapons hit the hull and spread out harmlessly. The ship was built to absorb damage, not deflect it. Every part of it was designed for one purpose: to destroy enemies and survive their return fire. Emma guided the ship through the swarm with skill that amazed even Jake. She spun the massive vessel like a dancer, keeping the weapons pointed at enemy ships while avoiding their return fire. The Vengeance moved through space like it was built for war because it was. "Enemy fighters down by 60%, Ryan reported. "The rest are trying to retreat." "Do not let them," Jake said. "Danny, target their engines." "I want survivors, but I want them unable to run." More guns fired. The remaining alien fighters found their engines destroyed, leaving them floating helplessly in space. The Vexthani pilots sat in their crippled ships, unable to understand what had happened. They were the best fighters in the galaxy. How had one enemy ship destroyed most of their attack force? On the flagship, Zektar realized he was facing something new and terrible. These humans fought like no species he had ever encountered. They seemed to enjoy the battle, to welcome the challenge of fighting against impossible odds. "Send a message to the fleet," he ordered. "Call for reinforcements. We need to learn what these humans are before we face them again." But Jake Morrison was not done teaching them about humanity. The real lesson was just beginning. The battle was far from over. Commander Zektar watched his screens with growing fear as the human battleship turned toward his main fleet. Half of his fighter force was gone, destroyed by weapons that made no sense. The humans used metal bullets instead of energy beams. Their ship was built like a fortress instead of an elegant work of art. "Fire all weapons at the human ship," Zektar ordered. "Concentrate everything on their hull." The Vexthani fleet opened fire. Dozens of plasma beams shot toward the Vengeance, lighting up space with green and blue energy. The beams hit the human ship and spread across its black armor like water on stone. The hull glowed hot but did not break. On the Vengeance bridge, Jake Morrison watched the enemy fire with calm eyes. He had fought in battles where the enemy had better weapons, better ships, and better numbers. But the enemy had never fought humans before, and that made all the difference. "Damage report," Jake said. "Hull temperature is rising, but we are still within safe limits." Lisa Carter reported from the engineering station. "Their weapons are designed to punch through energy shields. Our armor just absorbs the heat," Jake nodded. Human ships were built different because humans fought different. While other species had learned to make war clean and quick, humans had spent thousands of years making it brutal and effective. "Ryan, target their command ships," Jake ordered. "Danny, load the heavy shells." "Heavy shells loaded, sir," Danny Wright said with a grin. He loved his job, and it showed. The big man's hands moved over his controls like a musician playing an instrument. The Vengeance's main guns turned toward the largest Vexthani ships. These weapons were massive, designed to punch holes through the heaviest armor. When they fired, the entire ship shook with the force. The shells moved through space like angry meteors. They hit the alien bioships and exploded deep inside their living hulls. The Vexthani watched in horror as their beautiful vessels were torn apart from within. Their bioships could heal from energy damage, but they could not repair the massive holes left by explosive shells. "Their weapons are primitive," one of Zektar's officers said. "How can they be so effective?" "Primitive does not mean weak," Zektar replied. He was beginning to understand that these humans had taken a different path than the rest of the galaxy. While other species had made war more civilized, humans had made it more deadly. On the Vengeance, communications officer Nina Bell was listening to enemy radio traffic. Her equipment translated the alien language, and what she heard made her smile grimly. "Captain, the enemy is calling for help," she reported. "They are telling other fleets that they have found something dangerous. They are scared." "Good," Jake said. "Fear makes enemies make mistakes." Emma Rodriguez guided the ship closer to the enemy formation. The young navigator was skilled beyond her years, moving the massive battleship like it was a small fighter. She had learned to fly in the dangerous asteroid fields of home, where one mistake meant death. The Vexthani tried to surround the human ship, but Emma was too clever for them. She used the gravity of nearby planets to change course quickly, keeping the enemy ships in front of the Vengeance's guns while avoiding their return fire. Enemy ship trying to ram us, Ryan Blake called out from his station. Let them come, Jake said. Show them what happens when you get too close to a human warship. A Vex Thani cruiser charged toward the Vengeance, its biohull pulsing with angry red light. The alien captain thought he could damage the human ship by crashing into it. He had never seen human point defense systems work at close range. Danny Wright watched the enemy ship approach with professional interest. When it came within range, he opened fire with every small gun on the ship. The Vex Thani cruiser disappeared in a cloud of metal fragments and burning biomatter. Target destroyed, Danny reported. Shall I clean up the debris? Leave it, Jake said. Let them see what is left of their ship. Let them think about what happened to their friends. The psychological effect was immediate. The remaining Vex Thani ships began to pull back, no longer eager to close with the human battleship. They had never faced an enemy that seemed to welcome close combat. Commander Alex Stone watched the battle from the Marine deck. He was a big man with scars on his face and hands that had seen too many fights. His troops were ready to board enemy ships, but the captain was fighting the battle his own way. Marines, stand ready, Alex told his soldiers. We may need to visit some alien ships before this is over. The Marines checked their weapons and armor. Human soldiers were different from the galaxy's other warriors. They fought not just to win, but to make sure the enemy never wanted to fight them again. Dr. Kate Sullivan monitored the battle from the medical bay. She was a quiet woman with gentle hands, but she understood violence better than most. She had patched up human soldiers after dozens of battles, and she knew what made humans dangerous. The aliens are showing signs of stress, she reported to Jake over the communication system. Their radio chatter indicates growing panic. Panic makes people do stupid things, Jake replied. Stay ready for casualties. The Vexithani were indeed panicking. They had conquered 47 worlds without losing a single major battle. Now they were watching their fleet get torn apart by one enemy ship. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for this. We need to retreat, one of Zektar's officers said. This enemy is too dangerous. No, Zektar said, though fear made his voice shake. We call for more ships. We bring the entire war fleet. These humans cannot fight all of us. But even as he gave the order, Zektar wondered if he was making a terrible mistake. These humans fought like demons, and they seemed to grow stronger as the battle continued. What kind of species had they awakened? On the Vengeance, Jake Morrison prepared for the next phase of the battle. The enemy was calling for help, which meant more ships would come. That was exactly what he wanted. The galaxy needed to learn what happened when you made humans angry. All stations prepare for extended combat, Jake announced. We have more lessons to teach. The Vexthani fleet was trying to retreat, but Jake Morrison had no intention of letting them escape. He stood on the bridge of the Vengeance watching as enemy ships attempted to move away from the battle. Their formation was broken, their confidence shattered, but they were still alive. That was about to change. Lisa, deploy the hunters, Jake ordered. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter smiled as she worked at her controls. Hunter drones launching now, Captain. Small hatches opened along the Vengeance's hull and dozens of small objects shot out into space. They looked harmless, no bigger than a human fighter craft. The Vexthani sensors detected them but dismissed them as debris or escape pods. They were wrong. The Hunter drones were humanity's gift to psychological warfare. Each one contained a computer brain programmed with human military tactics and a very specific mission. Follow the enemy, study their patterns, and attack when they least expected it. Commander Zektar watched the small objects on his screen but paid them little attention. He was more concerned with the massive human battleship that had destroyed half his fleet. Increase speed, he ordered. We need to reach the jump point. The Vexithani ships moved toward the edge of the system where they could escape into hyperspace. Behind them, the human drones followed at a distance, always staying just at the edge of sensor range. They did not attack. They just followed, and watched, and waited. On the Vengeance, Tactical Officer Ryan Blake monitored the drones through his computer link. The young officer had studied human military history, and he understood what the captain was doing. This was not just about winning a battle. This was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Drones are in position, sir, Ryan reported. They are maintaining distance as ordered. Good, Jake said. Let them run for a while. Fear is a weapon too. The psychological effect was immediate. Vexithani ship commanders kept checking their sensors, seeing the small human objects following them like patient predators. The drones never got closer, never attacked, but they never went away either. What are those things? One alien captain asked over the radio. Unknown, came the reply. They are just watching us. The waiting was worse than fighting. At least in battle, you knew what was happening. This constant presence of the human drones made every Vexthani crew member nervous. They kept looking over their shoulders, waiting for an attack that never came. Hours passed. The Vexthani fleet reached the edge of the system and began preparing for hyperspace jumps. They thought they were safe. They thought the humans were letting them go. They were wrong again. Now, Jake said quietly. The hunter drones came alive all at once, but they did not attack the way the aliens expected. Instead of going for quick kills, they moved with surgical precision. Each drone targeted a specific part of each enemy ship, the engines. The attacks were perfectly coordinated. Explosions bloomed across the Vexthani fleet as drone after drone slammed into engine sections. The bioships shuddered and went dead in space, their living hulls damaged but not destroyed. Engine room reporting massive damage, came reports from across the alien fleet. Hyperspace drives are offline. We are stranded. Zektar stared at his screens in disbelief. The humans had followed them across the system, waited for the perfect moment, then disabled his entire fleet without killing anyone. They wanted survivors. That was somehow more terrifying than if they had simply destroyed everything. Sir, his communications officer said with a shaking voice, we are receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through, Zektar ordered. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the alien view screen. His expression was calm, professional, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. Commander Zektar of the Vexthani fleet, you are now prisoners of war. Do not attempt to repair your engines. Do not attempt to call for help. Cooperate, and you will live to tell others what you have learned here today. What do you want from us? Zektar asked. I want you to understand something, Jake replied. You attacked human colonies. You killed human civilians. This is what happens when you make that choice. Remember this lesson and share it with others. The transmission ended, leaving the Vexthani commander alone with his thoughts and his crippled fleet. On the Vengeance, Supply Officer Pete Anderson was coordinating the capture of alien resources. He was a practical man who understood that war was expensive, and the enemy's supplies could be put to good use. We are taking their food, water, and medical supplies, Pete reported, leaving them just enough to survive until rescue arrives. Make sure they see us taking it, Jake said. I want them to understand that we control their survival now. Security Chief Maria Santos led teams of Marines to the disabled alien ships. She was a small woman with quick reflexes and a reputation for being absolutely fearless. Her job was to make sure the captured aliens stayed captured. Boarding parties report successful capture of enemy command personnel, Maria said over the radio. The aliens are cooperating. They seem more afraid than angry. Bring the important ones back to the ship, Jake ordered, but treat them well. I want them healthy when they go home. Dr. Kate Sullivan prepared the medical bay to receive alien prisoners. She was curious about their biology, but more interested in their psychology. The way they reacted to human tactics would tell her a lot about how other species might respond. The aliens we have captured show signs of severe stress, she reported. They keep asking why we have not killed them. Because dead enemies cannot spread stories, Jake replied. Fear is more valuable than corpses. The captured Vexthani officers were brought aboard the Vengeance and placed in comfortable holding cells. They were fed, given medical attention, and treated according to human military law, but they were also shown recordings of the battle over and over again. They watched their fleet get destroyed by primitive human weapons. They saw their bioships, the pride of their civilization, torn apart by explosive shells and metal bullets. They learned that while the galaxy had evolved beyond warfare, humans had perfected it. Your weapons are crude, one captured officer said to Maria Santos during an interview. Crude but effective, Maria replied. We do not fight to look good. We fight to win. Why do you not simply kill us? Another alien asked. Because you are more valuable alive, Maria explained. You will go back to your people and tell them what happened here. You will describe human weapons, human tactics, and human determination. Other species will hear your stories and decide that attacking humans is not worth the cost. The alien officer stared at her with something like understanding. You are using us as messengers. Now you are learning, Maria said with a cold smile. Communications Officer Nina Bell monitored radio traffic from across the galaxy as news of the battle spread. Other alien species were intercepting Vexithani distress calls, and the reports they heard were causing panic in alien governments. Captain, we are picking up transmissions from multiple species, Nina reported. They are all talking about us. The word human is appearing in their communications with increasing frequency. What are they saying? Jake asked. They are scared, sir. Very scared. Jake nodded with satisfaction. Fear was spreading faster than their ships could travel. By the time the Vengeance reached another system, the aliens there would already know what humans were capable of. The galaxy was learning a new word. Human. And that word was becoming synonymous with something no civilized species wanted to face. Pure, competent, unstoppable violence. The recordings spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Every species with access to the Galactic Communication Network soon had detailed videos of the battle at Kepler 442. What they saw changed everything they thought they knew about affair. On the peaceful world of Harmony Prime, the Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their elegant chamber, watching the human battle recordings with growing horror. The Council had maintained peace for over 300 years by making war too expensive and too regulated to be worthwhile. Now they were watching a species that made war look easy. These humans, said Council Speaker Velton, his forearms gesturing at the display screen. They fight without honor. They use crude weapons. They deliberately terrorize their enemies. And they win, added Representative Kickstar from her floating platform. They win against impossible odds using methods we abandoned centuries ago. The recordings showed things that violated every principle of civilized combat. Humans using explosive projectiles instead of clean energy weapons. Humans targeting engines instead of making quick kills. Humans taking prisoners not for ransom or exchange but to send messages. Look at this, Velton said, pointing at one particular scene. They board enemy ships just to leave warnings carved into the hull. What kind of species does that? The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Thrennick of the Ancient Observer race stood slowly from his seat. The observers were the oldest species in the galaxy, and they rarely spoke in council meetings. I have seen this before, Thrennick said in his ancient voice. Long ago, when my people were still young, we encountered a species like this. They called themselves the predecessor warriors. They fought not just to win, but to make sure their enemies never fought them again. What happened to them? Asked Velton. They conquered half the galaxy, Thrennick replied. Then they disappeared into the deep void, looking for new challenges. We thought their kind was extinct. These humans are different, protested Kickstar. They only want to be left alone. That makes them more dangerous, not less, Thrennick said. A species that fights for territory can be negotiated with. A species that fights for survival cannot be reasoned with. Across the galaxy, military leaders were reaching the same conclusion. On the crystal world of Zephyr, General Carthul watched the human recordings with professional interest. The Zephyrians had the strongest military in the galaxy, feared by all other species. Analyze their tactics, Carthul ordered his staff. Find weaknesses we can exploit. His tactical computers worked for hours studying every move the human ship had made. When they finished, the results were disturbing. General, his aide reported, the human ship deliberately revealed its capabilities. They were showing off, not fighting at full capacity. Impossible, Carthul said. No species broadcasts their true strength. Sir, look at this. The aide brought up a detailed analysis. Their weapons could have destroyed the entire Vexithani fleet in minutes. Instead, they chose to disable ships and take prisoners. They wanted survivors to spread the story. Carthul stared at the data with growing unease. They used the battle as an advertisement. Meanwhile, on the Vengeance, intelligence officer Chris Taylor was coordinating with other human ships scattered across the galaxy. The humans had been exploring and establishing colonies for decades before making contact with galactic civilization. Report from the Outer Rim, Chris said to Captain Morrison. The hegemony fleet that was threatening our mining station has withdrawn. They received word about our battle here and decided to find easier targets. Good, Jake replied. How many other incidents? 17 separate alien fleets have changed course away from human space in the past week, Chris reported. The Crystalline Collective has issued an official statement declaring human territory off-limits to their expansion plans. Jake nodded with satisfaction. One battle was preventing dozens of conflicts. The galaxy was learning that humans were not worth fighting. Back on the disabled Vexathani ships, maintenance technician Amy Foster led teams that were carrying out Jake's most psychological operation yet. Amy was young but creative, and she understood the power of symbols. Carve the message deep, she told her teams as they worked on alien hulls. I want it to last for centuries. The humans were etching warnings into the bioship hulls in multiple languages. The messages were simple but effective. This is what happens to those who attack human civilians. The carvings were surrounded by detailed drawings showing human weapons and tactics. Why are you doing this? Asked a captured Vexthani engineer who was watching the work. Because your ships will be repaired and returned to service, Amy explained. Every time someone sees these messages, they will remember what humans can do. Your own ships will become warnings to others. The psychological warfare extended beyond the battlefield. Fleet Admiral Beth Young, commanding human forces across multiple sectors, was using the victory at Kepler 442 as a demonstration for other potential threats. Broadcast everything, Beth ordered from her flagship in the Centauri system. I want every species to see exactly how we fight. Instead of hiding their capabilities, humans were advertising them. They sent detailed tactical analyses to alien governments, showing exactly how human weapons worked and why they were so effective. The message was clear. This is what you face if you attack us. The response was immediate and dramatic. The Vexthani's traditional enemies, species that had been fighting them for decades, suddenly found themselves with a new ally. Not because humans liked them, but because humans had made the Vexthani afraid to fight anyone. The ripple effects are spreading faster than we expected, reported communications specialist Kevin Brooks from his station on Earth. 17 different conflicts have ended in the past month, all because the aggressors are afraid of drawing human attention. The galaxy's criminal organizations were also taking notice. Pirates who had raided shipping lanes for generations suddenly found themselves out of work. No one wanted to risk having their activities attract human interest. On the prison world of Kethmore, crime boss Velnix watched the human recordings with professional appreciation. These humans understand reputation, he told his lieutenants. One dramatic victory is worth 1,000 small ones. Are we changing our operations? Asked one of his subordinates. We are avoiding anything involving humans, Velnix replied, and we are spreading the word to other organizations. These humans are not potential victims. They are potential disasters. The Harmony Council called another emergency session as reports continued to arrive. Species after species was reporting the same thing. Conflicts were ending because no one wanted to risk attracting human attention. They are maintaining peace through threat of violence, Velton complained. This violates every principle of civilized society. But it works, pointed out Representative Gulhan from his environmental suit. Piracy is down 60%. Border conflicts have dropped to the lowest level in recorded history. These humans are solving problems we have struggled with for centuries. Through fear, Velton protested. Through competence, corrected Ambassador Thrennick. They have demonstrated that they can back up their threats. That is more than most species can claim. The debate continued, but the facts were clear. Humanity had changed the galaxy's balance of power not through conquest or diplomacy, but through one perfectly executed demonstration of their capabilities. The galaxy was learning to fear not human cruelty, but human competence. And that fear was bringing a kind of peace that centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, the galaxy was a different place. The UNS Vengeance now led a small fleet of human warships that patrolled the Outer Rim territories, where other species feared to go. Pirates, raiders, and aggressive empires had either found new careers or new graves. Captain Jake Morrison stood in his ready room, looking at reports from across human space. His scarred face showed satisfaction as he read the latest intelligence summaries. The galaxy had learned its lesson faster than anyone expected. Another week without major incidents, reported Intelligence Officer Chris Taylor as he entered the room. The Hegemony Empire has officially declared human space a neutral zone. The Crystalline Collective is asking for human mediation in their border dispute with the Ring Worlds. Mediation? Jake asked with raised eyebrows. They want us to solve their problems? Apparently they trust human judgment more than Galactic Council arbitration, Chris replied with a slight smile. Our reputation for fairness is growing almost as fast as our reputation for violence. The truth was that humans had become the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers, not through choice, but through necessity. Other species had learned that fighting near human territory would draw human attention, and no one wanted that. Diplomatic attaché Kevin Brooks arrived from Earth with new instructions from the human government. He was a calm man with gray hair and patient eyes, skilled at reading both human and alien motivations. The Galactic Council has sent another invitation, Kevin reported. They want humanity to join galactic civilization officially. They are offering us voting rights, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. What are the conditions? Jake asked. Kevin's expression grew serious. They want us to adopt the Galactic Peace Accords. No military action without Council approval. All conflicts to be resolved through mediation. All weapons to meet Council standards for humane warfare. Jake laughed, but it was not a happy sound. They want us to fight like them. The Council believes that civilized species should not use primitive weapons or psychological warfare, Kevin explained. They think our methods are barbaric. Our methods work, Jake replied. Their methods gave them 3 centuries of small wars, piracy, and constant border disputes. Our methods gave them 6 months of peace. Commander Laura Hughes arrived from the Fleet Command ship. She was a tall woman with steady hands and sharp eyes, recently promoted to serve as humanity's military liaison with other species. Her job was to explain human military doctrine to aliens who could not understand it. The Zephyrian General Staff wants to meet with us, Laura reported. They want to understand how we achieve such effectiveness with what they call crude weapons. What did you tell them? Jake asked. I told them the truth, Laura replied. Human weapons are not crude. They are optimized. We do not try to make war pretty. We try to make it decisive. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Communications Officer Nina Bell's voice came through the intercom with barely controlled excitement. Captain, we are receiving a priority message from the Vexathani Home Fleet. Commander Zektar wants to speak with you personally. Jake exchanged glances with his officers. Zektar had been released with the other prisoners 2 months ago, carrying recordings and messages back to his people. This was the first direct contact since then. Put him through to the main screen, Jake ordered. They moved to the bridge, where the alien commander's image appeared on the view screen. Zektar looked older than he had 6 months ago, his biosuit showing signs of stress and fatigue. Captain Morrison, Zektar said with what might have been respect, I bring a message from the Vexathani High Command. I am listening, Jake replied. My people have voted to end our expansion campaigns, Zektar announced. We are withdrawing from all contested territories and offering reparations to species we have attacked. We want no more conflicts with anyone. The bridge crew exchanged surprised looks. The Vexathani had been the galaxy's most aggressive empire, feared by dozens of species. Now they were voluntarily giving up their conquests. Why? Jake asked simply. Zektar's expression was difficult to read, but his voice was clear. Because you taught us something we had forgotten. War has consequences. Real consequences. We had been fighting species that sought to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. You showed us what happens when an enemy seeks to maximize damage and destroy our will to fight. And we discovered that we do not have the courage for that kind of war, Zektar admitted. We thought we were warriors. You showed us we were merely bullies. There is a difference. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Jake turned to his officers with a slight smile. That, he said, is how you establish deterrence. 3 days later, representatives from the Galactic Council arrived at the Vengeance to negotiate humanity's role in galactic civilization. They came aboard with visible nervousness, unsure what to expect from the species that had terrified half the galaxy. Jake met them in the ship's conference room, along with Kevin Brooks and Commander Hughes. The alien delegates were surprised to find the humans polite, professional, and willing to listen. We understand your concerns about our methods, Kevin said to the council delegation, but we want you to understand our position. We did not ask to be the galaxy's enforcers. That role was forced on us by species that chose to attack human civilians. Your weapons violate every standard of civilized warfare, protested Council Speaker Velton. Our weapons end wars, Commander Hughes replied calmly. Your weapons prolong them. Which approach causes more suffering in the long term? The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The galaxy needed human military capability, even if they did not like human military methods. A compromise was reached. Humanity would join galactic civilization, but on their own terms. Human space would remain under human law. Human ships would respond to threats as they saw fit, and other species would learn to solve their problems without violence. Because the alternative was human intervention. You are asking us to maintain peace through fear, Felton said. We are offering to maintain peace through competence, Jake corrected. Fear is just the emotion that incompetent aggressors feel when they realize they have made a mistake. As the council delegates departed, Jake stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. Communications continued to stream in from across the galaxy, reports of conflicts ending, criminal organizations disbanding, and aggressive empires choosing diplomacy over warfare. Sir, Nina Bell reported, we are receiving a message from Earth. Admiral Thompson wants to know when you plan to return home. Jake considered the question. Earth was safe, protected by the reputation humanity had built. The colonies were thriving under the umbrella of human military power. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. Tell the Admiral that our job here is not finished, Jake replied. The galaxy is learning to be peaceful, but lessons need to be reinforced regularly. How long do you think it will take? Asked Ryan Blake from his tactical station. Jake smiled as he watched the stars. Until every species in the galaxy understands a simple truth. There are worse things than war. There are the people who are really good at it. The Vengeance continued its patrol of the Outer Rim, a dark reminder to anyone considering violence that humanity was watching. The galaxy had learned terror's true meaning, and in learning that lesson, they had found a kind of peace that diplomacy alone could never achieve. Children across dozens of worlds would grow up hearing stories not of monsters or demons, but of the humans who came from the dark between stars and reminded the galaxy that civilization was not the absence of the capacity for violence, but the wisdom not to provoke those who had mastered it. And in human space, colonists slept safely under the protection of ships built for war and crewed by people who understood that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be absolutely terrifying at warfare. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. In return, humanity had given them something precious, a future without constant conflict. It was, Jake reflected, a fair trade.